Welcome to this deep dive, and let's face it, you sent me some really interesting material this time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's excerpts from a guided meditation audiobook, and I've got to say, I'm impressed.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a scribble and sit technique for processing emotions, 8 keys to mindfulness we can kind of weave into everyday life,
Hmm.
and even a surprising connection between joy and sadness.
Okay.
It's clear you're looking for practical ways to navigate those difficult times with more awareness and a bit more resilience. And
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what we're going to try to unpack today.
It's fascinating how this audiobook goes beyond the typical meditation for relaxation.
Hmm.
It really digs deep into how mindfulness can help us,
Yeah.
equip us
Yeah.
to handle, those inevitable curveballs life throws our way,
Right.
but with a bit more grace and strength.
Absolutely. And one thing that really caught my eye was this scribble and sit technique.
Okay.
I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Well, it's a clever blend of journaling and mindfulness.
Okay.
You basically alternate between writing about a challenging feeling or memory and then just sitting quietly,
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to what's happening in your body.
Oh.
It's a way to externalize your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
so you can create some distance and observe them without judgment.
So it's about gaining a different perspective on your emotions rather than getting swept away by them.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging those difficult feelings, but not letting them kind of completely take over.
Right.
And what's interesting is that simply naming your challenges can actually make them feel less overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
Putting words to those vague feelings of unease helps us pinpoint what's bothering us
Yeah.
so we can start to address it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I can see how that would be particularly helpful when you're feeling stuck or you're spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when the stress becomes chronic?
Oh, yeah.
Like in that story about the mother of four who was struggling after her husband's job loss,
Right.
it feels like a whole different beast.
It is, we're equipped to handle, everyday stressors.
Yeah.
But when it's chronic, it can actually reset our baseline,
Mm-hmm.
making us unaware of how deeply it's affecting us.
Oh, wow.
We become so used to feeling on edge that it becomes our new normal.
That's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
How do we even recognize when we're in that state of chronic stress?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it can really sneak up on you.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
The audiobook highlights that it can show up in different ways.
Okay.
Physically, emotionally, and mentally.
Uh,
Ask yourself,
yeah.
are you sleeping poorly,
Mm-hmm.
feeling irritable or on edge,
Right.
having trouble focusing? These could all be signs that your body is struggling.
So it's not just about feeling overwhelmed emotionally.
Mhm.
It's about paying attention to those physical and mental cues too.
Precisely.
Got it.
And that's where mindfulness can be so helpful.
Yeah.
It's about tuning into those signals before they become full-blown alarm bells.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. Sometimes when things get tough, all we want to do is numb out and escape.
It's completely understandable.
Yeah.
When the pain gets to be too much, we just want to shut it off,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's only temporary.
Right.
The audiobook uses the story of Jenny, this young woman struggling with prescription drug addiction,
Oh, wow.
to kind of illustrate this cycle of numbing, shame, and guilt.
Yeah.
It's a powerful example of how we can go on autopilot,
Hmm.
reaching for those escape hatches without even realizing it.
Her story is so relatable, even for those of us who haven't experienced addiction.
Right.
We all have our own kind of go-to ways of checking out,
Yeah,
mindlessly scrolling on social media, binge watching TV, overeating.
exactly.
What's important is that we start to recognize those patterns, right?
Absolutely. Awareness is always the first step.
Okay.
And instead of judging ourselves
Mhm.
for wanting to escape,
Right.
we can offer ourselves some compassion and try to find some healthier ways to cope.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Instead of beating ourselves up, we can use that awareness as an opportunity to make a different choice.
Exactly.
But this brings up a question. How do we move from simply recognizing those numbing patterns to actually getting unstuck?
Mm.
It feels like those patterns can have such a strong hold on us.
That's where facing our difficult emotions head on can be surprisingly helpful,
Okay.
even though it might seem counterintuitive.
So leaning into the discomfort rather than trying to avoid it.
Exactly.
Okay.
The audiobook highlights the story of Andrea, who was going through a painful divorce.
Right.
To kind of illustrate this point.
Mhm.
Initially, she resisted feeling any difficult emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but when the pain became unavoidable,
Yeah.
she realized that facing it head on was the only way to move forward.
That sounds incredibly challenging, especially in the midst of such a difficult experience.
Yeah.
How did she manage to do that?
Well, she had a moment of clarity where she decided to just sit with her pain and observe it without judgment. She focused on her breath, on her body,
Mm.
allowed the emotions to just wash over her without trying to fight them.
Right.
It wasn't easy, but she found that by allowing herself to fully experience the pain, it gradually started to lose its grip on her.
So it's about allowing yourself to feel those emotions fully rather than trying to suppress or control them.
Yes. And the audiobook uses the mind in the jar analogy to kind of visually represent this concept.
Okay.
Imagine you're swirling sand in a jar of water.
Yeah.
The swirling represents our chaotic thoughts and emotions. When the swirling stops, the sand settles and the water becomes clear.
That's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
Slowing down, noticing those thoughts and feelings, allowing them to settle so clarity can emerge.
Right?
It's almost like hitting the reset button on your mind.
Exactly.
But what about those truly dark moments?
Yeah.
When even mindfulness feels impossible, like in the story of Wendy, the cancer survivor who refused to get checked after finding new lumps.
Wendy's story is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Because it shows that even in the darkest moments,
Right.
unexpected sources of strength can emerge. She was consumed by fear and despair,
Yeah.
but it was her unfinished business,
Okay.
particularly dealing with her father's ashes.
Wow.
That became a turning point.
It seems like her story is about facing a different kind of fear.
Uh-huh.
Not the fear of the illness itself, but the fear of what it would mean to confront it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the things we're avoiding can actually hold the key to our healing.
It's like that saying, the obstacle is the path. It's in those moments of facing our fears
Yeah,
that we often discover our greatest strength and resilience.
absolutely.
Wow, that's
And Wendy's story also reminds us to stay open to possibility,
right.
even when hope feels lost.
This connects to you, the listener, on such a deep level. Think about a time when you faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge. What resources, inner strengths, or surprising insights helped you through? It's often in those dark moments that we discover just how resilient we truly are.
Right.
We may not always have control over what life throws our way, but we can choose how we respond.
It's like we have this inner reservoir of strength that we don't even realize we have
Right.
until we're called upon to tap into it.
And sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize just how strong we truly are.
Absolutely.
But what about when we're so stuck in old patterns that we can't even see a way out? The audiobook talks about people becoming addicted to intensity.
Yeah.
Like Rick, this young veteran who was constantly seeking out extreme experiences.
Right.
It seems like he was searching for that feeling of being truly alive, but in a way that was ultimately self-destructive.
Rick's story is a great example of how we can get trapped in these cycles of behavior
Yeah.
that, while seemingly exciting,
Right.
are actually preventing us from truly living.
So how do we break free from those cycles? It feels like they can have such a powerful hold on us, especially when they're tied to those core needs for connection, purpose, or meaning.
The audiobook emphasizes recognizing those patterns and understanding the underlying needs they're trying to fulfill. In Rick's case, he equated intensity with aliveness. But true aliveness comes from being fully present in our lives,
Right.
not just seeking out thrills.
So it's about finding a sense of peace and contentment in those everyday moments.
Exactly.
Okay.
Rather than constantly chasing after the next big thing.
I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of needing to constantly be on,
Yeah,
of needing to achieve and strive in order to feel worthy.
absolutely.
It's like we've forgotten how to simply be.
And mindfulness offers us a different way of being, a way of slowing down, connecting with ourselves,
Yeah.
and finding peace in the present moment,
Right.
no matter what our circumstances might be.
That's a beautiful concept. It's about finding that stillness within, even amidst the chaos of life. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier
Okay.
about the link between joy and sadness. That really piqued to my curiosity.
Yeah.
Is it really possible to find joy in the midst of sadness?
It's one of the most thought-provoking themes in the audiobook, isn't it?
It is.
It challenges that deeply ingrained idea that we need to chase after happiness and avoid sadness at all costs.
So it's not about trying to force ourselves to be happy all the time, because let's face it, that's not realistic.
It's
Life
true.
is full of ups and downs.
Exactly. The audiobook suggests that by embracing all of our emotions, even the difficult ones, we can actually experience a deeper, more authentic sense of joy.
That's a pretty radical concept.
It is.
We're so conditioned to believe that happiness is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And that sadness is something to be avoided at all costs.
It is a radical concept.
Yeah.
But think about it this way.
Right.
But when we resist sadness, when we try to push it away, we're actually creating more suffering for ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
We're cutting ourselves off from a whole range of human emotions that are actually essential to our well-being.
So by allowing ourselves to feel sadness,
Right.
we're actually creating space for joy to emerge.
It's a paradoxical truth.
It seems paradoxical, but
Yeah.
it also makes sense.
The audiobook uses a brilliant analogy.
Okay.
A painting with a wide range of colors and hues is far more interesting and dynamic than one that's just a single shade.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's about appreciating the full spectrum of human experience, not just the good parts.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the audiobook even suggests that joy and sadness can coexist, that they're not mutually exclusive.
How is that possible? It feels like they're opposites.
Oh, think about the feeling of bittersweetness.
Okay.
It's a complex emotion that combines both joy and sadness.
Okay.
Like the feeling of nostalgia.
Right.
Or the joy of seeing someone you love after a long separation. But also the sadness of knowing you'll have to say goodbye again.
So it's about finding beauty in the impermanence of life.
Yeah.
In the fact that nothing lasts forever.
Yes. And that's a powerful concept to hold on to.
Right.
Especially during tough times.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even the most difficult experiences will eventually pass.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm starting to see how mindfulness can be so much more than just a relaxation technique. It's a way of life, a way of approaching challenges with more awareness, resilience, and even a sense of curiosity.
And it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
The audiobook emphasizes that mindfulness is a practice, something we cultivate over time with patience and compassion.
It feels like we've been given a whole new toolbox for dealing with life's inevitable curveballs.
And like any toolbox,
Yeah.
it's about finding the right tool for the right job.
Okay.
Some techniques might resonate with you more than others, and that's okay. The important thing is to experiment and see what works for you.
So where do we go from here? I mean, how do we take all of these insights and actually apply them to our lives?
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand these concepts, but it's another to put them into practice.
The audiobook encourages us to view mindfulness as a way of being.
Okay.
Rather than just a set of techniques.
Right.
It's about cultivating a sense of presence and awareness in every moment.
Yeah.
Whether we're facing a major challenge or simply going about our daily routines.
So it's about bringing that mindful awareness to everything we do.
Exactly.
Okay.
From the mundane to the momentous.
And it starts with small steps.
It does.
The audiobook suggests incorporating mindfulness into everyday activities, like walking, eating, or even just taking a few conscious breaths throughout the day.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
It makes mindfulness feel so much more accessible.
Right.
It's not about having to sit in silent meditation for hours on end. It's about finding those little moments of awareness throughout the day.
Absolutely. And as we practice, we start to notice things we might have missed before.
Right.
We become more attuned to our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and even the world around us.
It's like we're waking up to the richness of our own experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're no longer just going through the motions. We're fully present and engaged.
Precisely. And that's where the real magic happens, when we're present.
Yeah.
And when we're not lost in our thoughts or caught up in the past or future.
Right.
We can truly appreciate the beauty and wonder of life, even in the midst of challenges.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to recap, we've explored a ton of valuable insights from this Mindfulness audiobook.
Yeah.
We talked about practical techniques like scribble and sit for managing stress and those difficult emotions. We also talked about the importance of recognizing our numbing patterns and finding healthier ways to cope.
Right.
But perhaps most importantly, we discovered that facing challenging emotions head-on with mindfulness and compassion can lead to unexpected breakthroughs and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
It's about remembering that we have the inner resources to navigate tough times.
Right.
And that even in the darkest moments, there's always hope.
This deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I've gained so much valuable knowledge and a renewed sense of hope.
I'm so glad.
I know you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up part 1, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question from the audiobook. What are the non-essential in your life that you could let go of to make space for what truly brings you joy and meaning?
That's a great question.
We'll pick up on that question in part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into those practical tools for navigating tough times with mindfulness.
Looking forward to it.
So stay tuned.
Great. It is a powerful question, isn't it?
It is.
What are the things we're clinging to that are actually draining our energy and preventing us from fully embracing what truly matters?
It's like we're so busy accumulating stuff, possessions, commitments, even beliefs, that we forget to create space for what truly nourishes our soul.
Exactly. And that's where mindfulness can be such a powerful tool for transformation.
Right.
It helps us to step back, observe our patterns,
Yeah.
and make conscious choices about what we want to keep and what we can let go of.
So it's about decluttering not just our physical space, but also our mental and emotional space.
Precisely. And that process of letting go can be incredibly liberating.
It can.
It frees up energy and resources that we can then direct towards cultivating what truly brings us joy and meaning.
It's like creating a fertile ground for those seeds of joy to take root and blossom.
Beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
Now, picking up on that question about non-essentials.
Okay.
The audiobook offers some really practical guidance on how to actually start making those changes.
Okay.
One of the key points is to remember that you don't have to do it alone.
So reaching out for support is crucial, especially when it feels like we're trying to break free from those deeply ingrained patterns.
Whether it's from a therapist, a friend, a support group, or even just connecting with someone who can offer a listening ear and a bit of empathy.
Right.
Having that support system can make all the difference.
It's like having a safety net as you're navigating those uncharted waters.
Exactly.
But what about those times when you're in the thick of it?
Right.
And don't have immediate access to that kind of support? The audiobook mentions something about using the elements, like the sky and the earth, as resources.
That's a beautiful concept, isn't it?
It is.
It's about tapping into the vastness and stability of the natural world.
Right.
To find a sense of grounding and perspective.
Okay.
Remember that story about Wendy?
Yeah.
While facing her fears, she sought solace in nature.
Oh.
And it helped her connect with a strength beyond herself.
Okay.
Something we can all do.
So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can just look up at the sky and poof, everything's better. I have to admit, it sounds a bit too simple.
Well, not quite that simple.
Okay.
But shifting our attention away from our internal turmoil and connecting with something bigger than ourselves can be incredibly powerful.
Okay.
Think of it as a way to hit the pause button on those racing thoughts and reconnect with the sense of awe and wonder.
Like a mental reset button.
Exactly. The audiobook even has a specific sky meditation where you gaze up at the sky and simply notice its vastness and openness. It's a way of interrupting those limiting thought patterns and reminding ourselves that there's a whole world out there beyond our immediate worries.
Okay, that sounds really grounding.
Yeah.
How does the earth meditation work?
The earth meditation is about finding a sense of stability and support.
Okay.
It's about connecting with the solidity of the ground beneath us. Feeling the support of the earth holding us up.
Right.
You can do this by standing with your feet firmly planted on the ground.
Yeah.
Or even just by sitting and bringing your attention to the feeling of your body, making contact with the chair or the floor.
Okay.
It's a simple yet powerful way to calm the nervous system and remind ourselves that we're not alone.
Yeah.
That we're part of something much bigger.
I'm starting to see how these practices can be so helpful in those moments when we're feeling lost or overwhelmed. It's about finding that anchor.
Right.
That sense of connection to something beyond ourselves.
Exactly. And the beauty of these practices is that they're accessible to anyone.
Right.
Anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't need any special equipment or training.
Right.
All you need is a willingness to pause, pay attention, and connect with the present moment.
So we got tools for processing emotions, techniques for finding support and grounding, and this idea of facing our fears head on.
Right.
We've talked about the importance of recognizing our numbing patterns.
And seeking support when we need it.
Absolutely.
We've even explored the surprising connection between joy and sadness.
It is surprising.
Is there anything else we can add to our mindfulness toolkit?
You know, there's one more aspect I'd love to touch upon.
Yeah.
It's the idea of cultivating self-compassion.
Okay.
Which is especially important when we're going through difficult times.
Self-compassion. That's a term I hear a lot.
Yeah.
But don't always fully grasp What does it actually mean in practice?
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness, care, and understanding that we would offer to a good friend who is struggling. Instead of beating ourselves up for our mistakes or shortcomings, we can offer ourselves words of encouragement and support.
So it's about silencing that inner critic.
Exactly, and replacing it with a more compassionate voice. And it's not about letting ourselves off the hook or denying our responsibility. It's about recognizing that we're all human.
We all make mistakes, and we all deserve compassion. Especially when we're going through tough times.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be imperfect.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And the audiobook offers some specific practices for cultivating self-compassion. One of them is called the self-compassion break.
I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Whenever you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or critical of yourself, you can take a moment to pause. And bring to mind a difficult situation you're facing.
So it's about acknowledging the difficulty rather than trying to push it away.
And then you can say to yourself something like, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment? May I give myself the compassion I need?
It's like offering ourselves a gentle embrace in the midst of the storm.
Exactly. And you can even place your hand over your heart. As you say these words, as a physical gesture of self-compassion.
I love that. It's such a simple yet powerful practice.
It is.
Do you have any other tips for cultivating self-compassion?
Another helpful practice is to write a letter to yourself. From the perspective of a loving friend. Imagine a friend who knows you deeply and cares about you unconditionally. What would they say to you in this moment? What words of comfort and encouragement would they offer?
That's such a beautiful idea.
It is.
It's like tapping into that well of compassion that already exists within us, but that we sometimes forget to access.
And as we practice self-compassion, we start to develop a more loving and accepting relationship with ourselves. And that, in turn, can ripple outward into our relationships with others.
So self-compassion is not just about being kind to ourselves. It's also about being kind to the world around us.
Precisely. When we cultivate compassion for ourselves, we're more likely to extend that compassion to others. And that creates a more compassionate and interconnected world.
This has been so incredibly valuable. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new set of tools and perspectives.
That's great.
For navigating tough times.
Remember, mindfulness is a lifelong journey. And it's one that's worth taking. The more we practice, the more resilient and compassionate we become.
And the more we're able to embrace the full spectrum of human experience with all its joys and sorrows.
Beautifully said.
Before we wrap up part 2, I want to leave you, the listener, with another thought-provoking question from the audiobook. How can you incorporate the 8 keys of mindfulness into your daily life, particularly during challenging times? We'll pick up on that question in part 3, where we'll explore those 8 keys in more detail and discuss specific ways to apply them to your own life. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into mindfulness for tough times. You know, we've covered so much ground already.
We have.
From practical techniques like scribble and sit and sky meditation.
To the importance of self-compassion and recognizing those sneaky, numbing patterns.
It's amazing how much wisdom is packed into those audiobook excerpts you shared.
It is.
It's clear you're drawn to the idea of not just surviving those tough times, but actually using them as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Absolutely. And in part 2, we left off with a question about those 8 keys to mindfulness that the audiobook emphasizes. It feels like a natural next step to explore those keys and how they can become practical tools for navigating those challenges.
It's a great place to focus our attention. Remember, these keys aren't meant to be a rigid checklist, but rather guideposts to help us cultivate a more mindful way of being in the world.
Okay, so let's unlock those keys, shall we? What's the first one that comes to mind?
The first key, and perhaps the foundation of all the others, is beginner's mind.
Beginner's mind. That sounds intriguing. What does it mean exactly?
It's about approaching each experience with a sense of freshness and curiosity, as if we're encountering it for the very first time. It's about letting go of preconceived notions and judgments and simply being open to what is.
So it's about seeing the world through the eyes of a child.
Exactly.
Okay.
With that sense of wonder and awe.
And, it's easy to get stuck in our routines and habits.
It is.
To see the world through a lens of been there, done that.
Right.
But beginner's mind helps us break free from those limitations and see the world anew.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be especially helpful during tough times.
Yeah.
When we're feeling stuck in those negative thought patterns.
Right.
Beginner's mind could help us shift our perspective and see new possibilities.
Absolutely. It's like hitting the reset button on our perception.
Okay.
Instead of getting bogged down by the same old stories,
Yeah.
we can approach the situation with fresh eyes and an open heart.
Okay. I'm loving this already. What's the next key that jumps out at you?
The second key is non-judgment.
Non-judgment. That sounds like a tall order, especially when we're going through tough times. It is.
It's so easy to get caught up in self-criticism and blame.
It is a practice.
Yeah.
And it takes effort.
Right.
But it's about noticing those judgments without getting carried away by them.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that our thoughts and feelings are just that. Thoughts and feelings. They're not necessarily facts.
So it's about creating some distance between ourselves and our thoughts.
Exactly. Observing them without getting entangled in their drama.
And this is where the scribble and sits technique we talked about earlier can be so helpful.
It can.
It allows us to get those thoughts out of our heads and onto paper so we can see them more objectively.
It's like taking those thoughts off the pedestal and putting them under a microscope.
And when we can observe our thoughts and feelings with non-judgment, we create space for understanding and compassion to arise.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. So beginner's mind helps us see things with fresh eyes.
Non-judgment helps us observe our thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them. What's the next key that we can add to our mindfulness toolkit?
The third key is acceptance.
Acceptance, that's a big one, especially when we're dealing with situations we don't like or want to change.
Right.
It's so easy to resist what is.
It's natural to resist what's unpleasant or painful.
Yeah.
But the paradox is that the more we resist, the more we suffer. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to a bad situation.
Okay.
It means acknowledging what is without judgment or resistance.
So it's about acknowledging the reality of the situation.
Exactly.
Even if it's not what we want it to be.
Precisely. And this can be incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with loss, grief, or disappointment.
Right.
But acceptance is the first step towards healing and moving forward.
I'm starting to see how these keys build upon each other. Beginner's mind helps us see things with fresh eyes. Non-judgment helps us observe our thoughts and feelings without getting carried away. And acceptance allows us to acknowledge what is, even when it's difficult.
Right.
What's the next key that we can unlock?
The fourth key is letting go.
Letting go, that feels incredibly liberating, but also scary.
It can be.
What are we letting go of exactly?
We're letting go of those attachments, those grasping thoughts and beliefs that are causing us suffering. We're letting go of the need to control, the need to be right.
Right.
The need to have things our way.
It's about surrendering to what is, rather than fighting against it.
Yes, and this can be a process, a gradual unfolding.
Right.
It's not always easy to let go.
Yeah.
Especially when we're attached to a particular outcome or belief.
Right.
But the more we practice letting go, the more peace and freedom we experience.
It's like loosening our grip on those things that are no longer serving us.
Exactly.
What's the next key that we can explore?
The fifth key is trust.
Trust. Trust in what exactly? Ourselves, the universe, life itself.
Trust in the wisdom of our own hearts. Trust in the unfolding of life, even when we don't understand it.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a sense of faith that things are working out for our highest good.
Right.
Even when it doesn't look that way.
So it's about having faith in the process.
Exactly.
Even when we can't see the destination.
And this can be especially challenging during tough times.
It can.
When it feels like everything is falling apart.
Right.
But trust is the anchor that keeps us steady amidst the storms.
I can see how trust would be essential for navigating those periods of uncertainty and doubt.
It is.
It's like having a compass that guides us through the darkness.
Beautifully put. What's the next key that calls to you?
The sixth key that really resonates with me is patience.
Patience. Ah, yes, that one can be a tough one, can it?
We can.
Especially in our fast-paced,
right,
instant gratification culture.
It's true. We're so used to getting what we want when we want it.
We are.
But life doesn't always work that way, does it?
It doesn't, and that's where patience comes in. It's about recognizing that growth and transformation take time. It's about allowing things to unfold at their own pace
right,
without forcing or rushing.
So it's about surrendering to the natural rhythm of life.
Yes. And this can be incredibly challenging.
It can.
When we're eager for things to change.
Yeah.
Or for a situation to resolve itself.
Right.
But patience is that fertile ground from which growth and healing emerge.
It's like allowing the seed to germinate at its own pace.
Exactly.
Knowing that forcing it won't make it grow any faster.
And sometimes the most beautiful things in life take time to blossom.
Okay, we're making great progress here. We've explored 6 keys already. Beginner's mind, non-judgment, acceptance, letting go, trust, and patience.
We have.
What are the final 2 keys that we can add to our mindfulness toolkit?
The 7th key is kindness.
Kindness. That's one we could all use a little more of,
We could.
both towards ourselves and others.
It's true, and kindness is often overlooked as a key to mindfulness, but it's essential.
Okay.
It's about treating ourselves and others with gentleness, compassion, and understanding.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That we're all connected.
And kindness isn't just about being nice.
Right.
It's about acting from a place of genuine care and concern.
It is.
It's about extending a helping hand, offering a listening ear, or simply being present with someone who is struggling.
It's like radiating warmth and compassion out into the world.
Beautifully said. And you know, kindness is contagious.
It is.
When we act with kindness, we inspire others to do the same.
Exactly.
And that can create a ripple effect of positivity and compassion.
A ripple effect.
I love that. Kindness as a catalyst for a more loving and compassionate world.
Yeah, it can be.
What's the final key that we can unlock?
The 8th and final key is gratitude.
Gratitude. Yes, that one's a game changer.
It is.
It's so easy to focus on what's wrong
Yeah.
or what's missing, especially when we're going through tough times. But gratitude helps us shift our focus.
It does.
What's good and what we're thankful for.
It's a powerful practice.
It is.
And it doesn't mean denying the challenges or pretending that everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about finding those glimmers of light amidst the darkness.
Yeah.
Those things that bring us joy, comfort, or a sense of connection.
So it's about training our minds to see the good even when things are tough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more we practice gratitude, the more we cultivate a sense of abundance and appreciation for all that we have.
It's like opening our hearts to receive the gifts that life is constantly offering us, even amidst the challenges.
Beautifully said. And, you know, gratitude is a muscle.
Yeah.
That we can strengthen with practice.
Right.
The more we focus on what we're grateful for, the more gratitude we experience.
It's like a positive feedback loop of appreciation and joy.
Exactly. And gratitude has been shown to have numerous benefits.
It has.
For our mental, emotional, and even physical health.
Okay, so we've unlocked all 8 keys to mindfulness. Beginner's mind, non-judgment, acceptance, letting go, trust, patience, kindness, and gratitude.
We have.
It feels like we've been given a treasure chest of tools for navigating tough times with more awareness, resilience, and even joy.
And remember, these keys aren't meant to be mastered overnight.
Right.
They're practices that we cultivate over time with patience and compassion.
Yeah.
The more we practice, the more they become integrated into our way of being in the world.
It's like weaving these keys into the fabric of our life, so they become an integral part of who we are.
Beautifully put. And as we cultivate these qualities within ourselves, we become more resilient in the face of challenges.
Right.
More compassionate towards ourselves and others, and more open to the beauty and wonder of life.
Yeah.
Even amidst the storms.
This deep dive has been truly transformative.
It has.
I feel like I've gained a deeper understanding of mindfulness and how it can be such a powerful tool for navigating tough times. And I know our listener feels the same way.
Remember, mindfulness is a lifelong journey.
It is.
And it's one that's worth taking.
Absolutely.
The more we practice, the more we cultivate a life filled with presence, peace, and purpose.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into mindfulness for tough times.
It was my pleasure.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and tools that you can apply to your own life journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep practicing.